Hey, come on. Come on. Hey. What? Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Hey. Let's chit chat, this is the show now. Come on. Bad black mama's gonna let you know now. Hey. Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Come on. Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, hey. Let's chit chat, sis. Hey, what's up? Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, let's chit chat, sis. Hey.
I'm grabbing my popcorn because this sounds like this is gonna be a good show.
All right, go ahead. Hey, CG.
What's up? What's up?
How you doing?
I'm all right. How y'all doing?
Is it pouring down rain in there?
Not too bad. It's all right.
Oh, it's freaking been like a typhoon here for 2 days.
Man, I just woke up not too long ago. I just woke up not too long ago, man. Work last night was kicking my ass. Oh, so
Work at night, CG?
huh?
You work normally at night?
Yeah, I always work overnights.
Me too.
I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of these old fucking people, man. I be wanting to cuss them out every fucking day.
Ooh,
Always arguing with me about some shit.
you
Like
must be a nurse.
I'm in IT, man, and I just don't understand why people be calling for fucking tech support like this is fucking customer service. So thinking like, sorry cussing so much, but
That's all right. My grandma said cussing is a slang word.
I don't like how people call us and they're like, fix my problem, but they want to argue with me at the same time. Like, customer ain't always right. In fact, you
fix it yourself then.
like you always wrong.
No more than me. Fix it.
Fix it yourself then. Don't call here.
I'm
one of them terrible people though, CG. When we have problems with IT, I'd be like, they be like, just start it over. I'd be like, I did that 3 times.
Nah, well, that's internal IT. I'm talking about websites.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, that guy.
Yeah, so internal IT. I don't blame you. I don't blame you on that. But when it comes to websites, it's like, hey, you built it, so fix your own shit, because it's really not my problem. I just work for your web hosting company. Like, I don't actually develop your site. But
well, that probably is something that you could do. Man. You're so good at stuff like that.
Man, I don't like the old people be arguing with me all night, man. It's cussing me out. I got one lady from the UK who calls all the time, and she's always trying to like get me. She try to get me fired. What she'll do is she'll try to get me to like say like cuss words or try to say like inappropriate stuff online. Like she'll be like, I need you to block some words on a spam filter for me. I don't want to really say it. I'm scared to say it. It's a bad word. It usually means it's a derogatory word for women. I was like, ma'am, can you tell me what word you want me to add to this filter?
Is it bitch?
No, man, because she's trying to get me to say that.
What she wants you to say?
She wants me to say that so she can get me fired, because she's gotten like other people fired in the past.
Oh,
they want to know the word. They want to know the actual word.
Oh yeah, so I'd be like, ma'am, because she's from the UK, so I'll be like, ma'am, I don't know. I'm from the US, you're from the UK, so there could be a cultural barrier. I don't know what word you are wanting me to use right now, so you got to tell me specifically. And then she tells me, well, I don't feel comfortable saying it in front of a man. I'm like,
she thinks you would feel crazy.
Twat. The word is twat.
Twat?
Yeah,
Really twat?
Wait a minute. That's the word she don't want you to say is twat?
it might be. I mean, it might be.
So here's the thing. We don't use, they use it a lot. We don't use it the way that they use it, but that's one of their favorite words. And so that's what I guess. That was my guess, is that it's twat.
Between that and then this woman, like, she's always like, I think she gets like scams ran on her by like Russians, because she's always talking about her infatuation with like Russian men. And I'm like, man, you getting your pockets ran by some Russian scammer right now.
You gotta be careful though, for
But
real.
here's
You
my
gotta
thing.
really be careful.
What makes her here's my thing. What makes her think it's a Russian scammer? It could be it's probably Nigerian. Oh, shit.
That's more likely. You're right, Chauncey. That's more likely.
You're right. You're right.
Russia's not messing with everyday folks. They messing with
true.
governments and stuff like that. It's probably that Nigerian that want that $1 billion and need.
That is true.
They don't play.
I'm sorry
That
to
is
say, because you know what I mean, you know what? I don't know how they do it, but Johnson, you are so right. Like they find ways, and you better be very alert to what's going on. Some people are just in situations where they feel a little desperate right now, and what that person, that Nigerian, call you and tell you to, you might fall for that stuff. You might fall for it. Like, I always wonder, and I ain't trying to be funny, like how they get to call so many people's numbers and stuff like that. That is just like craziness.
So let me.
They have these telecenters, and they go there.
So let me, not just that, but let me explain something to you. So all of the, how they have the list of the richest people in the world, the multi-billionaires and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are quite a few African people that are on there, and people don't pay attention to the list. Most of them have started telecom or some sort of cell phone company or what, and that's why they're so rich. So when you go over there, like, they're not using iPhones over there, right?
Nope.
So they got their whole other thing going on. So, and it brings in billions of dollars, right?
You are not lying.
We know how many Africans go to other parts of the world, just like everybody else, but we know Africans are everywhere, right? They have their own phones. They have everything already set up. I promise you, there's money there. So even though we have the picture of the starving kids in Africa and all of
there's a whole other side.
So rich, and they live on the high life. And then the people that are scamming is not the lowly Nigerian over that you might think trying to scam. It's people that already have money that are scamming like this. And if they send it out to 1 million people and 10,000 people respond, they still just made money.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's the law of averages. And so they just keep on trying and trying.
Numbers game.
It's a numbers game big time.
This is a good way to go into our topic, because I hate to say, traveling abroad. Actually, this was the topic CG brought up. So traveling abroad, like I don't know, traveling abroad as people of color, traveling abroad. I mean, Mel, you probably can elaborate on this too. Chauncey, because Chauncey actually schooled abroad. So, okay, let's just keep this conversation real to the realest, okay? Because all of y'all got this look on your face like somebody want to say something. But I want to travel abroad. I do. I want to travel abroad. And I think that traveling abroad is not just educational. I think it's fulfilling, you know what I mean? So you can always get out your way. You know what I mean? Get out your way when I say how we're used to living in the States is, totally different when you're abroad. You know what I mean? So you get to learn a lot. You get to appreciate other people's cultures. But there's another side to that too. And I think that as people of color, I think we're always aware of subliminal racism, you know what I mean? Or just blatant racism, you know what I mean? Because I don't think it's just contained to the United States. I think it's contained to the world, you know what I mean? But even when we talk about people in Africa, hell, they look at us like something different, you know what I mean? But, I think it all goes to the notion that you just have to be careful traveling abroad, because you got to be careful traveling here, because hell, you can get more danger here. I can tell you a couple places than traveling abroad, but we're going to stick to traveling abroad. So that was my little spill to start. Who's going to go next with their little spill?
Oh, we already starting with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, man, the reason why I really wanted to go over this today was because I wanted to talk about Brittney Griner.
That's a big one.
That's a huge thing right now.
That's huge.
And it's not so much from a perspective of like is it right or wrong that she's locked up? It's just like, this is happening. Like this is happening. You know, this is a petty crime in the U.S. You know, but overseas, you know, depending on the country that you're in, like this is some hard time.
So
So,
CG, what's the latest on her? Do you know?
man, I really don't know the latest. To be honest, man, I haven't been really locked into the story like that.
So
Um,
my understanding is the latest is that, you know, she was found guilty in court,
Yeah.
which was 99.9% going to happen because most people are. She was encouraged to plead guilty because then whatever her sentence would be, just like they do here, would possibly be lighter had she pleaded guilty. That's my understanding. And so in doing that, they did sentence her. And so she's at this point serving her sentence. The
Understand they're supposed to be negotiating her release. Is that
So the
correct?
That's the last thing I heard about it, but
the
it just
government,
went off the radar.
well, the government is, so the Russian government is asking for someone in return. So
In
the
return.
negotiation is not just, oh, let's negotiate her release. They definitely want another person in her return. And so the argument and the issue would be apples to apples and oranges to oranges, right? And so then now it becomes tough. And so now you look at it from a government perspective where, you know, it used to be for many years, we don't negotiate with terrorists, right? And so, and then you have now that's when the judgment starts on what the crime is. Although I feel horrible about what she's experiencing and what has happened, this has been going on for decades. This is nothing new.
Absolutely.
It's just that, you know, more families take their pleas internationally than they used to. Because if you think about in the 80s and the 90s with the drug trafficking trade, especially people going over to Asian countries, and they use that as an opportunity to get back to the US. And remember that story many years ago about the young man who had been caned in another country, and one of those Malaysian countries, I think. And so they caned him. And so because that was still their method of punishment. And so that's something we need to consider when we travel abroad, when we live abroad.
can you run
that-
down what caning means, what that is exactly? Because I'm not familiar with that.
So it is some sort of, don't get me to lying, so we'll have to look it up because I want to be as possible, but they literally take like this
cane?
free cane and they whip you with it.
Oh,
And so
But Black people been with so many different things. I mean, you know,
That
Well-
sounds light.
that's probably light. I mean, nobody.
Well-
I mean, I ain't gonna take that lightly because
no,
nobody.
I won't say that. Yeah, I won't say that.
I wouldn't say that, but I
Yes,
say,
I won't
what-
say that it's less than whipping. I would just say that it's a different instrument being used versus whip. I think they all hurt just as bad. And so, but I think it goes back to the point where you're going, no matter how westernized you may hear they are, their culture is still different than the culture in which you live. And people, especially Americans, travel abroad and have the expectation that they're going to be treated the way that they're treated at home, especially when something goes wrong.
do y'all
and-
think that's arrogance though?
That is definitely arrogant.
absolutely.
I think it's entitlement. I think we feel very, very entitled here in the
Yeah,
US.
I think it's arrogance, and I don't want to get too far from Brittney Griner because I think this is it's a lot of conversation around Brittney Griner because people are, like Chauncey was saying, and CG, people are feeling indifferent. You know what I mean? Some people think that because of her being a celebrity, it's even up for negotiation. The dude that they want to negotiate with, he's already served 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's Victor
Yeah,
Bout, the arms
right.
dealer. He's committed far worse
Far
atrocities.
worse things
Yeah.
than her, and he's already getting ready to come. I mean, in the next 5 years, he's actually able to be up for parole or release, or one of them. I don't want to say which one, but he's coming to the end of the stretch. You see what I'm saying? So the reason why I asked anybody hear anything is because it seems like we have gone into like the shadows, or it's not being put in the forefront, even though in the beginning it wasn't being put in the forefront. Like people thought it should be. I really didn't know, and I really don't like to state my opinion on it because there's a lot of people who are held against their will in foreign countries because of things they have done or violated, which is against that country's laws. You know what I mean? So, I mean, looking at Brittney Griner, I just want to get your honest opinion. She did something that was a crime. We all know that. We all know that the punishment doesn't match the crime. But do we agree that she should be having preferential treatment? Because that's what we have to call it, because there's lots of people still over there that never get mentioned. You know what I mean? And because she's a celebrity.
I don't know that she's getting preferential treatment. I really believe that the crime doesn't fit the
punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Say that again.
The punishment doesn't fit.
Yeah, I don't really feel like the punishment fits the crime. I just feel like, you know, many states in the US, marijuana is legal, and the small amount of marijuana that she had was not I mean, maybe it's illegal in their country, but this was a tactic. I believe it was
maybe about it. Ain't no maybe about that.
I believe it was a tactic. And the problem,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
The problem is that, you know, so high profile celebrity cases actually shed light on the law and other prisoners. So I don't agree that we should not put a lot of spotlight on this, because it gives an opportunity for those who have not had a voice and those who we've not heard about to be like, okay, well, let's include these two people, you know, in the release. They want an arms dealer to get out. That's an arms dealer. Yeah, that's what she committed. I think if we trade Brittney Griner and two other prisoners, I think it's worth the celebrity mayhem, so to speak.
Okay.
I think what Mel was saying, I think is the point. I think we can't look at what we do here in the States. You can't say, well, in the States, that's because you're not in the States. But at the same time, this is a country she was playing in. She was not visiting. She was living abroad, and she is a visitor to this country who's playing sports for their teams. And so I believe, from what I've read and what I've seen, I felt like it was an error. So it wasn't someone who was, you know, purposefully transporting, A, B, or C, and she's bringing it back home to sell it or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because they want to stick to the letter of their law. That's exactly what they're doing
to achieve their goal.
The big elephant in the room. All of this happened. Russia is in a war right now. You know what I mean? And so everything that's happening is exasperated. So at this point, where do you use sound judgment and say, you know what? Americans are not liked here. We're in the middle of supporting Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. You might want to be on your P's and Q's. You know what I mean? You might want to be on your P's and Q's, because you're not going to get, you're going to be a casualty of war. And that's why I feel like she is.
But that happened prior to the war breaking out in Ukraine.
No, it didn't. It was why
it happened simultaneously, kind of.
Simultaneously.
Right. So
now we're aspirated into a almost a nuclear war now, but this has been going on since Russia has already said that they were going to take Ukraine, and she's in the midst of this. Do I think that she needs tremendous help? God, I wouldn't want my daughter or nobody to be stuck somewhere and facing that many years. You know what I mean? She has a family over here, a wife, and so on and so on. But I just go back to this point where we can't do whatever we want to do. And sometimes this is called traveling abroad too. Even if you're playing for a team, traveling abroad means that you got to be on your guard. You got to do things that may not be comfortable for you. And you got to take into consideration that this is not their laws. You see what I'm saying? This is not their laws. CG, we keep on popping over you, but your thoughts.
I mean, I agree with everything. You know, I agree that, that this is a petty crime. I agree that she should be released. However, this ain't, I can't impose, our beliefs over into another country. Like, so you play those games when you take those risks. Like, I feel like every person in America who smokes weed and takes those risks, like you know, like when you're going to another state, like the laws and stuff, you like do that research and stuff. So why are you taking that risk in another country? On top of that too, the thing is, I'm a little bit on, I don't know how I feel about the government getting involved. And the reason why is because we have a lot of people locked up here. Marijuana is still a Schedule 1 drug.
Right.
So what type of message does that send to our people when we're like, well, we're gonna release this celebrity over here because you're getting X amount of years, but we still got all these people over here who
They're
are
locked up.
and you went over there to make money. You went over there to make money. You're making a nice amount, a nice salary. You went over there, broke their laws, and now you expect us to bail you out, and we can't even bail out our own people. Like, so what does that say about, like, how does that look to us as a country when we're like, we're gonna bail you out, but we're still gonna leave these people locked up? Like,
That's
so
But I don't see how that makes it look. I think that shining the light on it will allow them to be like, okay, President Biden and the federal government, why is this still a crime in these states? Because then there's a challenge that we can go through.
because of logistics of going through it, because at that point you're telling us that international affairs is more important
Yep.
than
It is
what's
though.
happening,
For them.
at home. And at the end of the day, she took that risk to take
But-
on, somebody else's laws.
But
We
don't you know that international affairs are to them more important than what's happening here? We're feeding the poor in other countries, but there are people
But
sleeping
that
on.
has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with her individual choice to take that substance. That
It's
has
not
nothing to
about
do with
that
our
though. It's not
economy.
about
That has nothing to do with our economy, our laws, anything. That
I don't think it's about Brittney Griner. I think it's really more about international law, and I don't think it's about her.
But that's not.
Celebrity that it happened to.
But that's their country. We can't do anything about that. What do you want us to do? Go and kick down their stuff? Go and send our army in and tell them, hey, you need to release these people? Like, we can't do that.
CG, you've been living here forever. You know the United States is always in everybody's damn business. We're always in why the hell we been in a war for 20 years that has nothing to do with us? We're always in everybody else's business. So
Yeah, but it's
So I
always-
don't want to get too sidetracked off of that because
Right.
there's a lot of valid points being made. A lot of
So,
valid points.
There's
Just from
another thing, too.
just from a legal perspective, you guys, Russia and Ukraine have been in their battle since 2014. However, Russia did not invade Ukraine until February 24th of this year. Brittney Griner was arrested on February 17th. So a week's difference.
Oh my God, Chauncey, be for real.
Chauncey, you knew they were already planning the invasion.
Chauncey,
but that
before
was-
they even invaded them,
but my
everybody
point- but my-
knew that they
yeah.
were going into
Okay,
Russia.
but- okay,
So
they
it's
might-
already a tense
Timmy,
situation. No,
that might
that's
have been, but
makes
I'm
no sense. You
no,
had
but I
a
think-
matter of 3
no.
days, and you
That's
had
no,
one
I got
hot
popcorn.
going on.
days. No,
Oh my
it's-
God.
I'm
Okay,
just
I'm
saying.
done.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, they've been fighting since 2014. So my
No,
point is,
Even though they've been fighting for 5
well,
to
what
10
I'm saying
years,
is one didn't
this
happen before
incident
the
right here, when they invaded Ukraine, we already knew they was going to invade Ukraine
we
3 or
might-
4 months. That tension
Okay.
was
Yeah,
already
what I'm
there.
saying is we still
That's
have to be
crazy.
because we're on a social platform. We still have to make sure we're correct about our dates.
But
That's all
guess
I'm
what?
saying.
The date, the
That's all I'm
date,
saying.
the
That's
dates
all I'm
we're saying is we can't say because on the actual day they invaded Ukraine that just said bam and started. That is not true, Chauncey.
I didn't say that. I just
So
said
that's what I was saying. What
Listen,
you were
I've
trying
been
to
to the
allude
Soviet
to
Union.
is
What I'm
that
saying to
we
you
didn't
is
say the correct
okay,
thing.
but what I'm saying is 2014, they've been in this battle since 2014. All I'm simply saying is she was arrested prior to the invasion. That's all I'm saying. I'm just making a correction. That's
She
it.
was,
It's
well, we
not
knew she was
correct.
arrested prior to, but there was a planned invasion. They didn't plan
It
that
was
on-
a plan.
I'm
That's
not-
what I'm saying.
I'm
That
not
was going,
saying
okay,
it
let's
was you
not
guys.
get let's
You're
not
not- exactly. I'm just
let's not
saying,
convince
let's
over
just
words,
make sure-
okay? I
Yeah.
hear what you said, and thanks for bringing the
That's it.
point up, Chauncey. It's
That's
no
all.
no harm, no foul.
Yeah,
So
that's all.
let's go back to where we won't lose everything because I think we are all over the place now for real.
So, I wanted to make a comment about
Go ahead.
because we are talking about traveling abroad and just part of just I guess another thing too is just we can talk about the color of law in every other country, but at the end of the day, when you're an American and you're traveling outside of this country, you need to survive. You need to come back home.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the primary goal at the end of the day. So if you want to go over to another country and you want to, participate in any substance abuse of any kind, whatever, you want to take on, going against the grain of whatever their cultural norms is, like you're taking that risk. And if you're in whatever it costs over there to do it versus what the cost is over here, it might cost you $25. It might cost you a fine over here. It might cost you your life over there. You're playing.
That's the biggest point.
You're playing with those odds. And it's unfortunate. And I'm sorry that happens for a lot of people. And I don't think it's, this really comes down to a race thing. I really just think it just comes down to politics. I mean, we saw a couple years ago with that UVA student.
Look at him.
North Korea. This guy came back brain dead. And they said it was over some like
a poster flag.
A poster. And I think there was like rumor that came out that said that maybe he even possibly didn't do it either. But
wow.
I think another one of those things is just we have to be, aware of like sometimes we just need to stay the hell out of these countries. Some of these countries are just not for Americans.
So I looked this up and I just wanted to bring this.
That is one of the biggest issues that you need to consider when you go somewhere, right? What is the relationship between the US and this particular country that I'm traveling to? And so why are you really going, right? Is the purpose of your trip going there, does it outweigh what the possible ramifications are? And I think so many of us on a daily basis, especially here in the US, just don't think on an international level. We think of traveling abroad, but we don't think of all of the issues that are going on between different countries. It may not even be an issue they have with the US. It just could be issues that, in Brittney's case, it's the issue between Ukraine and Russia, right? And so we're being drawn in because of that relationship. So that's something I think that's fair that people should consider when leaving. When I was an exchange student, although it was many decades ago, that was one of the things. They had to look at what was the relationship with the US and these particular countries, because if they had to pull you out while you were living abroad, if they had to switch your country before you left because things aren't looking so great, maybe we don't want to send that student there. All of that was taken into consideration. But this was an international program. So then that's what they do, and that's what they think of on a day-to-day basis. But as the regular Joe Schmo here in the US, do we even care, or do we think about what's happening abroad?
I think that it's not the fact of you caring. I think it's the fact of doing your research. And I'm not thinking, because I don't want to minimize Americans, because Americans are not in touch with what the relationships are with other countries. I think it's a choice. I think it's a choice at this point, because unless you don't own a TV and you don't have a neighbor, you know what's going on internationally. So
y'all knew I was supposed to go to South Korea tomorrow.
Can I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, girl.
But when you have these issues going on, like I said 100 times, I feel for Brittney Griner, but there is accountability there. It is accountability, because you went to another country. You're going as almost like a worker, a contracted worker, because you're doing something that you're getting paid for. You have to abide by other countries' laws. Now, are you ready for the ramification that comes when you don't? You see what I'm saying?
And
we can't compare that to exactly what is happening to people who are being held against their will. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people that are in these spaces that have been accused unjustly. You see what I'm saying? Lots of people. And there's lots of people still locked up. I mean, you talk about all kinds of stuff is happening in Mexico. All kinds of stuff is happening in South America, all these different Canada, all these different places. But I'm just saying, traveling abroad, you know what you're getting yourself into, because you can't take America and wrap it around you and say, I'm going to go by what America says.
You shouldn't.
Because you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to be dead.
And she's been playing there since 2014. So this isn't someone who just went there this year.
Well, maybe she just started smoking weed.
Right, exactly. And then
was it weed, or was it the oil?
It was a cartridge. It was a cartridge.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like smoking like a blunt. You know what I mean? Okay. She had a cartridge or something. And I mean, maybe medically she's going for it, because guess what? I understand that if you hurt and Marijuana is the choice that will relieve a lot of things. I mean, I'm a pro marijuana person for anxiety, depression, all kinds of things, body aches, cancers, all kinds of stuff. But
then I wonder who gave it to her, because she didn't bring it from the U.S. to there.
well, that's why, because somebody
Already
legally there did
right?
it.
So then she had to get it from
Yeah,
somebody.
and maybe
there.
somebody set her up. You know what I mean? Said, okay, here, buy this. But when you get out, guess where she at? She getting on flight number 1722 going to the United States. Go get her there. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's this thing. Mel, you want to say something? Go ahead, darling.
No, I just want to say that I think it's more than Brittney Griner. I think, because you guys know I was supposed to leave to go to South Korea tomorrow. And one of the things I did was a lot of research, and I was going by myself, and I looked up one of the safest cities to go to. But what I didn't look up is all the international laws and how they've been changing. They have the ability to change everything they do on a day-to-day basis. So today I can get into the country and tomorrow I can't. So I decided to postpone my trip. I think it's really important to learn the laws of the places that you're going to and not try, but especially internationally, and not try to do what we can do in the US. Because sometimes, I had a girl come here one day, she said, she had a whole bunch of weed. I said, how the hell did you get all this weed? She flew from New Mexico. She said, I put it in my pussy. And I said, and the dogs didn't smell you? Because I know when I walk by, they smell me. And she was like, nah, I shrink wrapped and it did this. You can't do that in those other countries because you don't know what the law, you didn't dig that deep to know what the law is that says that they can search your person in a certain way. And so I just think that we need to learn more before we travel abroad to any country. And I decided to postpone.
What about the countries? I'm just going to hook on to what you just said. What about the countries that keep changing laws? Isn't that
it's
a red
terrible.
flag not to go there? I mean, really, if somebody, they're not here, we don't change laws like this. We got a whole process that we must go through to amend laws and create new laws. But if you go to a country that you know,
I ain't doing nothing no way that I got to wonder.
But you don't even know.
I don't know, but you know, that's a hard thing to say, Chauncey, because they may just say something about you wearing your hair pulled back. That's now illegal. You know what I mean? That's now illegal. And you're now going to be stuck there busting rocks or whatever they want to do to you. You know what I mean?
I went to an African country. You were supposed to wear your hair covered. I was scared to death every day because I hadn't brought anything that you wear your hair covered. And I was there for 2 weeks. I stayed mostly in the house.
Yeah, that's scary. That's
scary.
Well, really scary.
We were in Dubai a few years ago. Took my husband a few years ago for his birthday. And in Dubai, they're a little more lax than they are in Abu Dhabi. But in Abu Dhabi, they're still it's a very traditional. And the United Arab Emirates is still a Muslim country. So you couldn't wear short sleeves. You could not show public displays of affection. I had to wear, if I wore pants, it had to come down to my ankles. So I couldn't expose certain parts of my skin. However, that was one of the trips where I used a travel agent. And then that was part of the responsibility of that travel agent was letting me know, okay, so these are the laws. This is what you need to be aware of, sending us links, sending us pamphlets to let us know you're not allowed to do this, 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 and this. And so, no one said, oh my God, why is that the rule? And that doesn't make any sense. Or we just respected the fact that this was the rule where they are, and we had to abide by it while we were there. When we got off and went to the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi, we had to be completely covered to even get off the bus. They told us that on the tour. We all got dressed and put on our garb while we were on the bus. So before we stepped foot off, we did what was told. And so I think that if people have the kind of spirit or the kind of nature where they're just going to try and push the envelope, that's the other reason why things happen to them. Well, I'm just going to try it anyway and see what happens.
Well, don't try that, girl, because I'm gonna tell you, don't try it. Don't try it. And we don't want people to think that you shouldn't travel abroad. But I just say, please be aware of, and like Mel did. Mel was gonna go to South Korea. She actually did research on places that was friendly to Black women traveling alone. Right, Mel?
Yep.
So maybe you gotta just bring it down a notch and just do some sensible research and say, hey, this is the place where I can still go and enjoy myself. I don't want to go to a place where I know it's a hostile environment, period. Like, how do you make that good? You see what I'm saying? How do you even make it good for yourself? But like, it is what it is right now.
And what's surprising is that South Korea has usually been a little bit more friendly than North Korea. So the fact that she still did her research and was like, maybe this isn't the place that I want to go and it's not for me. Or
Yeah.
sometimes maybe it's not the place to go alone. You know what I mean? And so I think that those are things that need to be taken into consideration, and find out what the customs and stuff are. Now with social media and website platforms, there's a place you can't go to find out what it is. When I was researching going to stay in Santorini and stuff like that, there's this particular guy, he has a whole Facebook page. Even once we knew COVID had hit, and he was just like, listen, they're not going to let you in because you're coming from the US, because at that time Greece had one of the lowest instances of COVID, right? So they were trying to make sure they kept their numbers down, even though, Italy is right there or whatever, and they had one of the higher ones. So we're not letting anybody from the UK in, we're not letting anybody from the US in, and all of that. So, you have to think, what can happen? What can happen if you go or try to work your way around it? And it's just not worth it.
Well, just as a resource for our listeners, I think that one of the good things that I did was I looked at the country's embassy to get information. And it's usually updated on a daily or weekly basis. And it'll say at the bottom when it was last updated. And that'll help people make a decision whether they should go or not. And especially if we have clashes with people that are allies with that country, we would keep our asses at home. Stay home.
Listen, and
Miami is nice when it's not a Florida hurricane.
Right. And what I love about it, and you make a good point, Mel, is that they flash it. When you go onto the government website, even our government website, they're flashing, it's not a good idea to travel here. And when I was younger, we used to look at what kind of shots do you need to go to certain countries, right? And be like, ooh, I'm not willing to get that. Because when I lived abroad, I had to get a yellow fever shot. I had to get this malaria shot. I had to get all these shots. And I was told even back then, and AIDS was new then. They were just like, just know if you get, you get this vaccine and you're tested, it could look like you have HIV or something. I'm like, what the heck? It was like, okay. So those
test you,
they have all things you need to take into consideration. So.
Well, I think that we covered a lot of different things, and I just say this much. In closing, everybody can have their final remarks. I'm going to say mine. Don't take your ass nowhere and break their damn laws and cry for somebody to come get you, because that's your ass. That's what it's going to be. You know what I mean? Hell, you have a hard enough time here in the United States. So you can go across the water if you want to and bring your blunt and think you're going to be sitting there high and just drinking a martini or whatever. Okay, let me know how they work out for you. Things are just rough all over. They're rough in your own area, but at least you have processes that are put into place for your, hopefully that you can use, that you can keep yourself out of trouble. You don't know what's going to happen to you overseas. So if you travel abroad, do what the people tell you to do. Like my grandma said, do what the people tell you to do. And don't try to find the gray area. That's what I'm saying. Keep it black and white. Don't find the gray area, because you know what? Nobody's coming to get your ass. I'm sorry, because unless I don't know, anybody sitting on this platform rich and got plenty of resources, you may not get back. But others may, but you don't want to roll the dice and you don't get back. So Mel.
So I'm not a gambling person, so that's why I changed my trip. But I do suggest that people do their research, like you said, and do your governmental research, because it's going to give you the actual laws and it's going to be updated. And if keep your ass at home. If you don't know what's going on, stay at home. Smoke your weed in California, Oregon, or Portland.
Exactly.
Just do that.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado, wherever the hell it is.
Jersey.
Stay the hell home.
Smoke your weed and be happy.
Yep.
Chauncey?
Yeah, so listen, we have enough issues here traveling across state lines. And when someone wants to work through the letter of the law and you don't know what that letter of the law is, you can get the maximum sentence thrown at you. And so if we are that way here in our own country, imagine what things could possibly be like somewhere else.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying things happen at any given time for any given reason. But if you're trying to do something nefarious or it's a little shady or it's a little, as Kimmy put it, gray in the gray
Right.
area, stay home. Be gray at home.
Be
But when
right.
you go abroad, be
Gray and
clear.
high and
Oh,
happy. See,
The thing is, the purpose in you going to some of these other countries is because you want to see something different. You want to see the beauty of their land. How about you go and just do just that? Just go see the beauty of their land and enjoy their culture and all of that, and leave the rest of it for when you get back home.
well, you don't want to see a cell or a dirt pit or anything like that. You better
More
do
likely a
it
dirt pit.
right. DG, your final thoughts?
And just stop going to other countries thinking that it's an extension of America. Like
Ooh,
you're
yeah.
a guest, you're a guest in other people's country. Like no matter how you look at it, and at the end of the day, you need to come home safe. So if you want to play those games and take those risks, good luck. It's everywhere is not as civilized as as it is over here, and you will be used as a bargaining tool, a
Yep.
bargaining chip, and
Maybe.
they'll take your life. I mean, they'll take your life for an agenda. I mean,
And how they take your life, you'll be begging them to take your life.
it's
Well,
really
and see, and he just made a point. I was joking when you was like, you could be used as a bargaining chip. Like, I don't want to be used as a bargaining chip because maybe even if you're caught for whatever reason, keeping a low pro might be important, right? Now, if you become the bargaining chip, now they're going to treat you even worse because now the spotlight is on you.
Well, unfortunately, if you're Black, you're not going to be used as a bargaining chip. You're just going to be in that dirt trap. Bottom
yes,
line.
and you need to be careful. And
Unless you're a celebrity.
where, especially in a country where there's a population of like 1% Black people, like you might want to watch out. Like, come on now.
You should have been going over there in the first place if it was 1% Black. You know what?
I'm trying to find me a Korean man, girl. Stop playing.
Girl, we ain't even talk about sex trafficking. Go take your ass to the wrong
ridiculous
place. You know what I mean? Hell, we having people getting swiped up off at the supermarket or going to the store and they missing. You know what I mean? You go across there where they have almost mastered the art of taking people and making them vanish. And you the 1%, you might be considered exotic. Okay, we'll take your exotic ass and you're gone. You know what I mean? So
that's why I say it's important to travel together,
and don't get drunk somewhere and be traveling with your girlfriend and they leave your ass out there. You know what I mean? Because that's another thing. We did not hit on none of that. We need to have an after show because this stuff is for real. But okay, everybody said their point, and this was a really good show. And I can't wait till I put this one out because holidays are coming, people are traveling, and we're going to say lots of prayers for people because some people just don't get it, but we get it because we all going to be right here. I don't know, maybe not. You can ready to travel somewhere, Chauncey. I see your mouth open. I know you can ready to go somewhere. You always going somewhere, but I know you ain't going with no foolishness. So let me not say that. Just don't because I don't want nobody to be pissed at me. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
No, you're right, but you're right. No foolishness, right? Because things can happen even when you're not doing foolishness, but definitely when you have that on your mind. So
you had that on your mind, you scheming? Ooh, girl, go ahead and scheme. Because you know what? I want to be having no picture of you up on something because they don't even return you. So I'm just saying, I'm just keeping it real. But join us every week on Wednesday when we drop a new episode, and this was a funny episode as well. So join us on our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and definitely YouTube, TikTok too. Oh, we just started that. So joining me tonight on the porch is
Ramel.
I'm Chauncey.
DG.
And I'm your girl Kimmy. We'll see you next week. Have a good week on purpose.
Peace.
We didn't hit on a lot of things though with this episode. We didn't hit on, and it started popping in my head. Maybe it was popping in your head too. We didn't
Well,
hit on-
I had a different idea when I saw the topic. So then I think maybe that's why Kimmy's saying what she's saying. I didn't realize it was more geared towards like when something happens. When I just thought it was just traveling abroad, period.
No,
So,
it did. I think I sent it in the email as traveling abroad, but the title on there, if you look in the thing, it says don't mess
Don't-
up
Mhm.
traveling.
Yeah.
So, I told you this was CG idea because we're supposed to really branch off from Brittney Griner, but we didn't touch on human trafficking is huge. You know what I mean? It's huge. What else did we talk about?
Kidnapping, just regular kidnapping for like ransom.
For ransom. For
Yep.
ransom.
and a lot of people do not know this, but depending on where you work and things like that, your life insurance policy covers things like that. So there are,
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying.
Wait a minute. You can't just say that. You got to elaborate. You say your insurance policy cover what?
Depending on what job that you perform and what your duties are, when you go to travel abroad, there is a small segment, a rider within your insurance policy that can offer some funds if you are kidnapped.
Oh, wow.
And in addition to your travel insurance, if there's
Correct.
there's a little section you select that, like incidentals, things
Right.
like that. Yep.
But you hope you ain't got to use
How
it.
much
'Cause
is
it
that?
probably won't get you where you want to.
How much that
No, it
cover?
ain't. Well, listen, like I said, depending on where you travel, right? Everybody not gonna get no ransom anyway. So,
Look, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to find out how much is that.
but no, but
That sound like a Social Security bill for $250.
but there
Or it
are
sounds like he's looking for an opportunity to me.
Hey, look, if you need to pay off your PPP loan, this might be for you.
But when you think about it, there are many executives and my brother was a vice president in his company and stuff like that. And they were constantly building plants in Mexico and South America and Central America. So, there's always uproar there. And there's a lot of kidnapping, especially of US citizens and stuff like that when they travel abroad. So like I said, it may not necessarily be Joe Schmo working at McDonald's, but you kind of get the point with what I'm saying. But I think that, like I said, being a student abroad, there were just small little customs that would get people in trouble. There were countries where if you crossed your legs and the bottom of your foot was up, the way that men cross their legs and that letter, number 4 or whatever. Yeah, that was considered disrespectful in some countries. So that's why I said there were rules when we traveled abroad and we lived abroad that they kind of ingrained in us. Don't do this. Don't do this.
You got to know the culture.
Exactly.
culture.
So,
Yeah.
AFS was.
Let me just say this. Look,
But if you black,
what about it? Just a sorry.
Oh,
No.
well, like I said, again, when in Rome, that's where that whole, adage come from, when in Rome, right? So I know the organization I traveled with had 3 rules as an exchange student. You do not do drugs. And mind you, this was the 80s. You do not hitchhike and you do not drive. They didn't want you driving, hitchhiking, or doing drugs. That meant everything else was on the table. So that meant that even if you went to that country, yeah, you could drink is something, it's a lot, but those were the 3 at that time. So I'm sure maybe the rules are a lot different in today's day and age, but those are still 3 good ones, right? Don't do no drugs because you don't know what the rules are. We may not be able
driving to. You don't even know where you at. Like when you better say, go and get your.
But when you live someplace for a year, right? But we were in high school, so at home you got your driver's license, so you're tempted to jump in a car and go drive someplace. Hitchhiking, back in the day, hitchhiking was a big thing, right? And that's how a lot of folks got killed, right?
Black people used to hitchhike.
Everybody used to hitchhike.
Hitchhike, but I'm just saying when you look at movies, look at the movies on the set, everybody was hitchhiking.
And they were white or some other. They was not black. Black people don't just get in no strange car. I refuse to believe that.
Oh no, it happens. It depends on where you live, but trust me, it happens.
Okay.
And so hitchhiking, right? Doing drugs. And hostels. Remember hostels?
Did you see all the
They still have them.
Oh God.
See all the hostel movies? That's
Oh, exactly. I never listen. I wasn't staying in no hospital. You ain't chopping my head off. That used to be my whole. I used to say that all the time. Be
and
like,
the
no,
cat
I'm
licked your
good.
trunk. That's not funny though, but you know what? Because I think a lot of people are just in pure misery because of wrong decisions. You know what I mean? It's
Oh, yeah.
a decision thing that just can divert your whole life. You know. So look, Mel, don't you say this all the time? Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't
That
do
is
it.
my statement. Don't do it.
And you know,
And-
it really is a shame though, because I think that we get to I think we're limited now because first and foremost our relationship with so many places are not really good as Americans, you know what I mean? And then number two, times are just so hostile now that we don't get to enjoy other people's cultures because we are in like this almost our own sandbox now, and people don't want us around, you know, because of this. If we have to have a topic where we are discussing this kind of
But you know what? I
action.
tend to disagree with that. You know, I travel a lot and people don't feel that way necessarily about Americans per se. And so they really don't. And so I've always, maybe I've just been fortunate, but they've been
Maybe where
very,
you going to, that because, and that was very smart where you're going to. But
what do you mean?
I look at a lot of different news stations, and I'm not talking about local.
Mhm. No, I'm talking about abroad. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
that's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
not a really we have like this reputation of being
Yeah.
entitled,
Still do.
and we think that we're superior than other people when we don't even try to understand people's strife and what they actually go through.
I
And
agree with that to an
that's
extent.
like we have a narcissistic tag on top of us. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? And that's not looked upon as welcoming. And when I say welcoming, we haven't even talked about the topic of women. You know what I mean? Women.
And right, but what I want to say is that what we don't take into account is we're knocked down several pegs when we do have that attitude in certain countries without getting in trouble. We're not the only arrogant, entitled ones. Trust me when I tell you this. But
We
when you
probably
go
are
to
not, but
when you go to a country with that attitude, they will knock you down a peg or two. They will show you you're not as smart as you think. And so when you have that, I think that's the difference. And that's what people will see and what they run into. And so,
I
yeah,
think we're saying the same thing, because I totally agree that when you go to these places, if you don't have a sense of reverence for where you're at, then they will make sure that they show you that
Oh, they
you're
do.
not an elitist here.
and we definitely have that attitude when we think we're traveling to a third world country, especially. I think that's more so where we get in trouble. We go to these third world countries and we just like, oh, we're so much better than them, and you know, we know so much more and stuff like that. But then when we go to these other countries that have this rich culture and this rich history, then yeah, our attitudes are very different. So yeah,
But I went to Paris, Amsterdam, and Germany, and my attitude is not very smug. But when I got there and tried to order stuff in a tourist area, couldn't understand why they didn't speak English. And then I had to remember that's the American culture. That's the
Yeah.
way we are trained. You know, everybody should speak English. And I was wrong. And I had
And they
to
speak
quickly
3 and 4
learn how to speak
languages.
French.
that, you see what I mean? So, and the thing is that if they were to get to know you and they found out that you were American, because see, that was the other thing, especially in the 80s. People didn't just assume when you traveled abroad that you were from the United States. You know how many times people just assumed I was from Africa and thought I was African? And so sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good, but that was the assumption. It was never that I was even from the US.
Well, every
How
time I travel, they
ironically
thought I was from Iran or something. I don't even know why.
I
So
can see
then
that, Amy.
sometimes, yeah.
Really, I'm not joking, y'all. Every time I went and I traveled, if my husband's standing right here, he'll tell you. I thought somebody had something on my doggone ID or something, because I was always getting like the searching and, you know, what country did you origin from? What, right here? Didn't you just see me walk in the door? Like, what is going on around here? But I'm just joking. But really, you know, I see what
No,
you're saying.
serious. My
To
stepfather.
interpret you somewhat as something else, you know what I mean?
My stepfather wore a yarmulke. I
Mhm.
promise you, every time he flew, they pulled him out the
Pull
line.
you over. I'm like, no, I'm born and raised in North Philly, 13th Street.
After 9/11, he used to be like, every time I go through security.
After 9/11, yep.
Profiling.
9/11, yep. All right, good episode, y'all. We may have to have a follow-up on this one, probably the first of the year. Because
I'm curious with military people, when you live in bases and stuff overseas, and you're overseas.
I'll have to ask Tony to come, because Tony was in Germany for a long time.
Yeah. So how are they treated when they do something wrong, right? Of course, you get some sort of protection, I guess, as military personnel.
But you're gonna be judged under military tribunal. You're not gonna be. They're gonna deal with you.
I mean,
if you're lucky, right?
If you're lucky.
I mean, once the military is done with you, once the U.S. is done with you, I mean, the U.S. may turn you over to the other country, and then
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Oh, those fuckers.
Depending on what you do, because they can't smooth everything over, right?
Everything. So why don't do it?
Don't do it.
So, CG, did you know anybody who had this experience?
I mean, we talked. There's always rumors when I was in about people almost causing international crisis because of
Incident.
things like especially because we have our base in Okinawa, so a lot of times you'd have a lot of crimes from the Marines, especially on the local Okinawan girls, and like you have Marines that are locked up in the brig on some life charges for what they've done to the locals over there.
Wow,
that's crazy.
I mean,
yeah, I think we need to have a follow-up on this. Maybe when we do the sex trafficking episode.
Really good topic, CG.
Really good. Thank you, CG. So, any final words?
Again, just prayers to Brittney's family, her wife. I think her wife is.
They have a child. Don't they have a child?
Think so. I think she's only been married a little while to this woman, I think. But either way, even I think her wife's an attorney as well.
Yeah, she is.
So, right. So then now, again, you think in certain roles and certain positions, but we're not dealing with US law, right? So then the fight is different. And how many lawyers in the US would be versed in Russian laws?
Just think about the chain of like communication. How many people you have to go through just to be able to say, "Hi, Brittney, we are your representation from the U.S."
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Jesus Christ.
Could you
But
imagine?
here you can talk to your attorney, and if you can't talk to anybody else, but in some of these other countries, they don't provide access to the prisoner.
How you can see how her face looked when she was, they were trying to explain to her. Well, I was like, Lord, somebody.
And they don't have to provide an interpreter either.
Exactly. So and are we getting? And is the translation even? Can you really even rely on that at the end? Like,
And is the person representing you really representing you?
Right.
That's a big one. Oh,
especially when you're looking at a country like that where Putin's been in power for God knows how long, and I mean, it could just be on a call. It could be like something like Putin's like, "Yo, I'm gonna need for you to hold on to Brittney Griner. I don't give a shit what's going on here. Here's what's gonna happen. If you do anything outside of this, judge, I'm gonna kill you and your family."
Yep.
But you know what? And this just the other day with all the I say insanity happening. Like you want to claim these portions of Ukraine, and because desperation is setting in. It just makes me think like, what is happening with her? Because no one is talking about it anymore. It's like first we knew Biden was trying to talk to Russia. They knew about this armed agent. Now all of that is like, whew, it's silence.
Well, because I think that it's hard to come back and say, right now, there are more important things, and we have to put this on the back burner. That's not going to make her family feel any good. As a matter of fact, it's going to make them feel worse because she's not a priority to you. Do you know how many priorities we have right now?
You cannot think about priorities.
You want to know what else it is?
And that's why I kept my black ass out of South Korea, because then I would not be a damn priority. It's a whole lot of other stuff going on right now.
You not a priority, Mel. You not.
I know it. And I know it. That's why I'm sitting here today eating popcorn.
It's probably humbling too. Like, in America, we're used to, get a couple celebrities on a couple things, and like you can run things up to the front door of the president, and he'll address it on the news the next day.
Mhm.
And it's like we're creating, obviously all of us were talking about it. Putin's probably like, I don't give a shit.
Listen,
Hey.
Don't you come on here with that crap.
Did I get what I want? I don't
only
care.
on television are issues solved in an hour. Only on television.
Like, I don't care. Like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure they're thinking like, we're not worried about what y'all want as Americans. Like, I don't care about your freedoms. I don't care about none of this political stuff. Like, like we as Americans don't see that. Like, we're talking about a country that has leverage. We're talking about dealing with a country that can tell us fuck you. Like, we can hold on to your prisoner. Like, what are you gonna do?
What you gonna do?
Not a damn thing.
Nothing. That's what I'm saying. That's scary.
And that's why I brought up the North Korea thing with that student from UVA.
Oh yeah,
That's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. That was terrible.
So we got
people here use it as political leverage. You know what I mean? When in actuality, you got to think about it. You can't really use it as no leverage, because guess what? It was their laws, and you already know what was going to happen anyway. You can try to negotiate and plead or whatever, but guess what? If somebody got something that you want, that's just a reality of life. You're going to have to humble yourself or bring more to the table. And they want more. They want more. How much is Brittney Griner worth? You know what I mean? To you.
And so, CJ, it was 1994.
CJ.
No, CG, I'm sorry. CG, it was,
I'm sorry.
It was 1994 that this kid, he was 19, and he was sentenced to 6 flogs of the cane in Singapore. That I was trying to think of it.
And how old was he?
Huh?
How old was he?
19?
He was 19 years old. And he was vandalizing cars.
Yep.
And
he wanted to die.
He's playing with them folks.
Yes, he was playing with them folks, and that's what happened. So compare that, right, and they made it became this huge international incident, right? Because now his family wanted him to have all of the, oh my gosh, but he was gonna be hit 6 times. So
if that was our kid, you'd be like, you better take that thing, hope they put you on that plane and you be quiet and get back over here and don't do that mess no more.
You better take that ass whip and get on that plane, go.
Take that. My mom used to beat you with all kinds of objects. You talk about a cane. Like,
yeah. And then they had, and I forget the name of it, but you look it up. It was a movie some years ago with Claire Danes and I think Kate Beckinsale, and they were 2 young women, and they liked this guy, and he wanted to put things in their bag, and both of them got arrested and sent to this Asian
and the one king got out, and the other one stayed home. Yeah,
because the other girl took the blame. She did, but she knew the other girl couldn't handle being in there.
That was
based off of a true story. It was a good movie.
Was it the Assholes or something? It was good. It was good.
It was very
That's
good.
A movie that everybody should look at before you go overseas. Fool around if you want to.
That was the point now these girls didn't go over there to do anything wrong. One was more of a party girl than the other one, but they had graduated high school. They were both going to go to college, and they went over there as a graduation trip. But what happened was they got hooked up with this guy, and he saw 2.
And that's another thing we didn't talk about, because being lured into trouble. Into trouble.
They put the drugs in their bag, and the 2 girls got arrested. And then
think about it. You got to be on guard.
Guilty, and and it cost your family money.
I know a girl who that happened to 2 Black girls, and they were going to Jamaica back and forth, and this guy convinced them to be mules, and they got caught before they even got through the checkpoint, and they were locked up, and it was a long time. But I have to say that the race played a big role in it, because they were locked up for longer than you would have thought they should be locked up for that.
Okay. I ain't going over there nowhere. And you want some hash? You want some? I don't want
They
none.
always ask you that.
I don't even. I'm bring my own water. Oh no, if that illegal, I ain't gonna bring that either. I'm not gonna do nothing. Just
It's
gonna
good.
go and sit down.
Yeah.
But this was a good episode, y'all. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for engaging. This was awesome. Any final words?
No, that's it, y'all. Just, do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Or do the right thing or keep your ass home.
Gigi? Well, look, Princeton already said y'all better get off of here now. You said I'm gonna go get mama.
You
All right,
already
y'all.
don't like the rain.
Oh, God, no,
Love
no.
you guys.
All right, next Wednesday we'll do it again. Have a good one.
All right, see ya.